On this episode of That Kingsville podcast, we're talking budget 2026.
Where's Dave?
I know. This episode is going to be significantly more boring and way less voices, just so that everyone is prepared.
But not boring because of the cast. It's just
because
no Dave.
We have no Dave. It's just
first time.
It's just us.
We'll try.
We'll see what we can do. We got big shoes to fill. I mean, he has big feet. On this episode of That Kingsville podcast. That Kingsville podcast is brought to you by Kingsville Brewery. I did some ChatGPT stuff, but because Dave loves that. But we decided, no, we're not doing it.
We'll just talk about beer.
We'll just talk about beer. I was actually out last night. I saw Mark and Isa out. We were talking about some delicious Kingsville Brewery. Said they've been busy making lots of fresh brews.
Good. I've had a couple of stouts lately. It's perfect time of year for it.
Honestly,
go out after you shovel though. And I did a little shoveling tonight. Not that I had the stout before I came here, but
yeah, you don't want to thin that blood.
No,
that's a health risk. But
it is a warming beer.
It is. You know what's a great idea when it's snowing like crazy, like it is outside right now? Delivery.
Yes.
Get yourself some delivery.
Not that we want to put the drivers at risk, but hey.
No, but it's better than putting yourself at risk.
And
so
he or
protect
she's
yourself.
Probably going a lot of places this time of year.
Right. Get some check. Get yourself an IPA.
Yep.
Probably not a Hefeweizen, but I mean, dig into a stout.
If you're really missing summer, it's worth a taste.
Get yourself a nice full-bodied stout and enjoy some Kingsville Brewery, kingsvillebrewery.ca. Welcome to this episode of That Kingsville podcast. I'm not Dave.
And I'm not Dave.
No, Dave.
No Dave.
We have no Dave. We're Daveless. I'm Kevin.
I'm Steve.
Yeah.
Steve.
Steve.
I'm too much Dave talk. Came out as Steve.
It's so much Dave. But no Dave. No. It's a little under the weather. It's flu season right now. And so I don't know if he has the flu. I don't want to be.
Doesn't.
I know. I don't want to be presumptuous, but flu shots are available at your family physician. There are flu shot clinics. If you are over 50, good idea to look into it. Flu season this year is no joke. So be careful. The hospitals are getting busy. There's not a number of confirmed flu cases yet, but we're not far away. So as the weather gets colder, people get indoors, and it becomes a problem, right? So make sure that you stay healthy. Now, I was away last epised.
Yes, you were tanning.
Yes, laying on the beach. It was not health related. Went to Portugal.
Fantastic.
Beautiful country. I had no idea how hilly Portugal was. You wouldn't want to deliver mail there. It's lots of ups and downs. Actually, funny story. So we get there, and we flew in on the 12th of November. So we leave here. It's an overnight flight. So we get there on the 13th at about 11 in the morning. And as we fly in, a bit of turbulence, a bit of a rough landing. It's all right. It's breezy and lots of rain, like a heavy, what you would consider in Essex County, like a heavy rainstorm. And bunch of family traveling together. So we had two 12-passenger vans to load all of our luggage in. And then where we were staying was a 2-hour drive away. So we jump in the vans and we're driving down, and I notice about an hour into the drive that the guy driving the van is gripping the steering wheel overly tight.
Like a white knuckler.
Like a white knuckler. You can see the muscles in his forearms. He's gripping this so tight. And he's trying to remain calm, but you can tell, he's having some concerns. And as we're driving along, and it's raining, it's raining. It's not out of control, but it's sideways rain. It sucks. And then we drive by a car that's up on a guardrail, and if it had went further, was going down a cliff. Oh, that's probably not great. And then we get a little bit further down, and there's two cars driving up the side of the hill off the other side of the road. And again, like that's probably not great. Like that doesn't look normal. And then we finally get to our Airbnb, and we park the 2 vans. The guys like threw our luggage in the Airbnb and they were gone, like gone. And like, well, that happened really fast. So it's still raining, lots of wind. And we decided, all right, well, we're going to walk down to the store and get some groceries. And I promise this has payoff. So we are walking.
It's all good.
We're walking down the road, and it's hilly. So we walk down this big steep decline, up another hill, down another steep decline, and we get to the grocery store. And we go to the grocery store. It's completely empty. Nobody else is there except for one single cashier. We're like, okay. So then we like load up on groceries, grab some wine, grab some beers. And we're like, you know what? Before we head back up to the house, we'll stop at the pizza place and grab a beer and a slice of pizza. So we walk into the pizza place. Nobody in the pizza place. There's like a waitress is in the very back of the pizza place. She comes out, looks at us, white face, like more or less,
what
like,
are you doing?
Why are you here?
Okay.
And we're like, can we have a pizza and a couple beers? And she's like, okay. So then they like make us a pizza. They bring it out. We're just sitting there like watching the soccer game that's on TV, drinking a beer, eating our pizza, and we grab our stuff. And it's like raining still like crazy outside, but we walk back up with our groceries in our hands and back up those 2 hills and get up to the Airbnb. And then it's nighttime, so like it's still raining. And then it's like, then all of a sudden in the house, like there starts to be drips coming from the ceiling. And well, that's weird. Like, and it was a nice place. Like you wouldn't like looking at it, you're like, well, there's no way that you're gonna have like leaks. But oh yeah, no, there's leaks coming in from the ceiling. And so we're putting out towels on the floor to like sop up the water. And we all like probably have too much wine, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, and we turn on the TV, and my brother-in-law can speak Portuguese. So we're watching the news in the morning, and it turns out it was a tropical storm, like named like Tropical Storm Claudia, which blew into the Algarve, unfortunately killed 2 people about a kilometer away from where we were staying. So the rest of the trip, beautiful weather, but the beginning, we inadvertently, unknowingly, were walking around Portugal in the middle of a tropical storm.
And no wonder you got the strange looks when you went in places
Right.
and nobody else was there.
What are you doing out here?
Well, I'm glad that didn't set the tone for the trip.
It didn't. It was actually like looking back on it, it was kind of like cool to hang out inside and hang out with family, and you know, it was fun, but probably not so fun if you live there and like you're forced to deal with property damage, and there was unfortunately a lot of.
That's too bad.
So yeah, I didn't know what a tropical storm looked like, and now I do, and I mean, it wasn't bad if you don't know what's happening around you.
Sure.
In complete oblivion.
Wow.
But Portugal, it's beautiful. And if you get a chance, you should go.
All right. I'll put it on my list.
Let's talk budget. We'll get Ryan McLeod and we'll talk some finances.
Money.
All right. Joining us in that Kingsville podcast is Ryan McLeod, Director of Finance and Corporate Services, the town of Kingsville, talking budget. Ryan, how's it going?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it.
You're not missing hockey for this, are you?
I have about an hour before I have a hard stop for hockey.
Okay.
All
right. Well, we'll try not to
take that long.
Yeah, we'll try not to dig too deep into some of the previous ancient reserve funds, but we'll do our best. Before we get into it, I do. One thing we never really do a good job of, and I was actually thinking about this on the way in, is we always talk about the budget, but then we never really go back and talk, because the budget is just the plan. So like, how did the plan work out? You know, so we never really go back and actually like close the loop on that. So my first question, Ryan, is how was last year's budget? Were you guys close? Did you have any significant changes that had to happen during the year?
Well, I would say that there's always new projects that kind of come up during the year, and that's where it's handy to have reserves in order to respond to. So anything that's a certain variance from what we budget, we have to bring to council. And so when we do, we'll bring the issue forward, and we'll basically explain how we're going to fund it. And more often than not, that comes from reserves. But overall, I would say this is one of the tighter budgets in terms of budgets for actuals for the year that I've experienced in quite some time. There's certain things that we have control over and some things we don't. One of the things being supplemental taxes, and not to get too geeky on it, but basically supplemental taxes is an amount we estimate for new taxes coming on during the year from basically new construction. And as everyone's kind of well aware that the construction industry slowed down. So where we used to always kind of have surplus funds coming from supplemental taxes, we're actually under budget in 2025. So that means we have to try to make up that ground elsewhere.
But really, wasn't a whole lot of carryover. Like, you're not looking at anything and saying, okay, well, now we have to, and we'll get into bump ups in the budget in a sec. But you didn't start from a position where you knew you were going to have to make major changes regardless.
Well, I mean, there's certain carryover capital projects, and we identify those in the budget. I'm not sure exactly offhand what schedule that is, but we'll identify which projects are carrying over to the new year and if we require any additional funds, and if so, where are those coming from. Some of the projects are multi-year projects. When you look at, say, our Southwest Water Main or Westside Collector Road, some of those projects take years to bring from engineering to shovels in the ground to actually opening the road or water line.
All right, and so turning to this year's budget, maybe introduce us to it. What's there? What should residents know? Okay,
well, the 2026 budget proposes a tax increase of $143.63 for the average household in Kingsville, and basicly, I would say it's a kind of a back to basics kind of budget. I mean, we're focusing on infrastructure. We're still dealing with a lot of cost pressures coming out of kind of the post-COVID years. And, so that's impacting a lot of our operating budget lines. So we're trying to push back on those wherever we could. Certain things that are a little bit outside our control. And then we're also trying to address our asset management funding gap. We have about 3.3% increase in this budget dedicated to addressing our infrastructure funding deficit.
I've seen the criticism of you on Have Your Say Kingsville, and so I'll say it. I know you don't want to, but the $143 is a 6.7% tax increase, and obviously, and I saw some of your comments back to residents, and I do want to commend you on replying back to residents, because I think that's important. I think that it's great to have the opportunity to ask these questions of you. If just any member of the public, if they want to ask, you're answering, which is great. And I think you make a good point. When you do look at 6.7%, it sounds large, but the dollar is $143 for a person with an average home in Kingsville.
Yeah, I would say, I know we do take criticism for maybe not coming straight out with the rate increase. And I think, as I've tried to articulate on the Have Your Say page, there's a couple of reasons why we don't come right out with that. Probably the first reason is that the person, the ratepayer, a lot of people don't go past the headline, right? So once you come right out with the headline, people just kind of stop reading and already make up their mind. So we want residents to invest the time in understanding the budget and understanding where their tax dollars go. But a couple of the reasons is, what a lot of residents don't realize is that, when they pay their tax dollars to Kingsville, we only keep 55% of every tax dollar. So when they hear 6.7% increase, they automatically think their bottom line, their monthly payment, or their due date installments going up by 6.7%, which isn't the case. It's only the Kingsville portion of your tax bill that's going up by 6.7%. And then the second kind of point too, or third point I should say, is that we're not all starting from the same place. Like, a lot of people compare us to other municipalities and say, this municipality is at 4%, this one's at 5%. Why can't Kingsville be as low as them? Well, my response is that we're all starting from a different position. So if you lived in a town where you paid let's say $100 in property taxes, and that town increased their tax rate by 5%, you'd pay $5 more. If you lived in a town, we had the same house, but you're paying $125 in property taxes, and it went up 4.5%, you'd be paying $5.63 more in tax. But the headline would read as if you're paying less in the second municipality than the first one. So that's why we kind of shy away from just starting right with the percentages, because we are starting from such a low position out of the gate.
The other reason I don't like the comparisons either is municipalities are different. I mean, you can say that, yeah, we're the only one that doesn't have a double ice pad, but we have a lot of other amenities that these towns don't have. So, I mean, does that weigh into any of your explanations too, when you're sort of saying, hey, look, that's great, and the media will say Essex is this and LaSalle's this and we're more than that, but at the end of the day, they've got all this stuff, we've got all this stuff, and we're different.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a factor. We try to get council to focus on service level, setting the service levels rather than focusing on just trying to manipulate a tax rate from one year to the next. We want them to focus on the long-term picture, right? But you're absolutely right. Service levels do vary from one municipality to the other. And then every municipality is also in a different state of how they're paying for that. Some municipalities have incurred a lot of debt to put on their double pad arenas, while other ones have paid for from reserves, right? So you kind of have to look at the balance sheet as well as what's on the ground.
And I will just add to that real quick that was just one item that came to mind. I'm not saying that we should or shouldn't have a double pad. It was just one of the things
at least you did say pool.
Don't even say that P word. But anyway, on to the next.
Well, I think it's a fair example. I was skating with my daughter last night on the LaSalle Ice Trail. That's a $9 million capital project, probably close to $500,000 a year in operating expenses for that thing. It's really cool. It's fun. It's a great amenity. Do I think it's with Kingsville taxpayer support, that tax increase required to build that? Some would, but a lot wouldn't. And is it the number one project on our list? Probably not. But every municipality's got different amenities and there's different costs associated with that.
So I got a little, geeky, and I broke down some of the other towns' budgets. I took their percentage, and then I figured out what the annual increase would be in dollar value over a year. But then because every town has a different average assessment, I reduced it to make sure that I was only comparing the numbers so that it was equal at a $250,000 assessment value. So, so Essex has a 4.92% draft increase in their budget. That would be $135 extra a year. Leamington has a 2.5% tax increase in their budget. If they did it at for a $250,000 home in Leamington, that'd be an $88 a year increase. And Lakeshore's budget is ridiculously low because of their assessment value. So it's a difficult comparator. But Lakeshore is planning a 4% tax rate increase, and that's a $70 a year increase. So when you're talking percentages, 6.7 sounds significantly higher, but when you're actually talking dollar value per year, Leamington's 2.5 and Kingsville 6.7 actually has a difference of about $50 per year.
Yeah.
Just so that we're right sizing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the analysis and just keep in mind that's just the difference for this year. I mean, keep in mind that you're starting from a different point as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's walk through the budget a little bit. So what are some of the major capital projects that are in there?
Well, as I kind of alluded to before, what the biggest capital project on the tax side is the construction of the West Side Collector Road. We're hoping to get that completed in 2026. That project, as some of your listeners might be aware, was 50% funded through grants from the province. And the other 50% we're funding through a combination of development charges and some gas tax money that we have. We are purchasing a new fire truck at the cost of just under $1.2 million. There's a number of bridge and road resurfacing projects. that are all kind of listed out in the capital schedules there. We're replacing our pig pen street sweeper. A lot of residents appreciate that service. And to be honest with you, beyond aesthetics, it does do a good job of keeping our storm infrastructure clean of debris. So it serves a value that way. We're hoping to reconstruct the Beach Street parking lot, which is the one behind Vern's there. We kind of resurface that. And other than that, just a lot of equipment replacements. And then on the water side, we have the Southwest Water Main, the remaining phases of that, going down County Road 20 towards McCain Side Road.
Sorry, go ahead.
So what sort of major disruptions could we expect in 2026? And I don't know if you can answer that right now, but you look at Leamington and Seacliff Drive is a nightmare between Fraser and Shirk. Obviously we had some delays with Road 2 a couple of years ago, but it's fantastic now. Can you tell us anything that we should be looking out for next year?
In terms of our budget, not so much. Like, the big project being the West Side Collector Road, which is a road that nobody uses yet, so it's not going to impact current travelers. A lot of our roads are rural roads, and then the urban roads that we're doing are kind of localized in individual subdivisions. So not a lot of kind of main arteries or that type of thing in the 2026 budget. That being said, I'm not as familiar with what the county has planned. So the county may have plans that impact Kingsville travelers.
Yeah, we did just receive the proposed county budget today, and I don't know if they're discussing that today. I believe it's county council night tonight. So,
I wonder if that is going tonight.
We'll look into the county roads for next episode.
The county budget, just so the listeners know, the county budget had a proposed 2.65% tax increase. But that county levy is something that we all end up paying, so it would end up trickling down to our tax bill as well.
But just so people understand that 2.65 is not added to the 6.7 of the municipal to make a 9, right? No. Okay, so let's.
We actually got in that argument on Facebook last year with a resident.
Right, so we want to make that clear. Okay, back to Ryan.
So, actually, one thing you didn't touch on in the capital budget that Dave will be extremely excited about is there's a new beach groomer in there. Dave was complaining about the beaches, so he'll be excited that there's a new beach groomer.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to appreciate it. Actually, the one that we are retiring was a hand-me-down that we got from Leamington. So we were trying to save costs a few years ago and getting a used beach groomer, and hopefully we'll get something better this year.
In the operating budget side, obviously there's some significant pressures in there. Maybe talk about what's like when you look at the increases, they're fairly tied to about 3 or 4 different departments. Maybe get into what some of those impacts are.
Yeah, so I think I was talking about this earlier in the call about the inflationary pressures kind of coming out of COVID. So we've seen a lot of increase in the cost of living adjustments, and we're seeing that trickle through the labor market. So there's a lot of pressure on labor rates, just to be able to retain and attract staff, both union and non-union. So that's a real issue we're trying to deal with. And that's also reflected in the contract. So whether it be the gas cutting contract or garbage collection contracts or that type of thing, they're all impacted by inflation. And one of the biggest items that we have in terms of the contract is the policing contract. That is we anticipate it's going to go up a little over $300,000 this year. We haven't received official word yet, but that's kind of the direction that we've received from the province.
And the total net change on that, because I actually did that math too, on a person's tax bill would be about 30%, right?
I guess I haven't looked at it that way. I think it accounted for about a 1.3% rate increase alone just on the police services contract.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And that if people are thinking, well, what's that mean on overall expenses? Yeah, it's a 30% increase. 30% of the total expense increase in the budget is something that the town has no control over in the OPP contract. It's big. Another big one is fire this year. What's going on in the fire budget?
The fire budget, I'm trying to think of what jumps out specifically. I mean, we have our current complement consists of like kind of a bare bones staff of full-time employees that, they're not just sitting around waiting for the alarms to go off. They're doing inspections, they're doing public education, they're preparing training for the volunteer, or I should say probably the paid on call fire source, the fire department. And so that's all driven by, calls for services and the training requirements that they have to do. We are seeing training demands go up every year for our volunteer firefighters. And that's having a huge impact on our ability to attract and retain these volunteer firefighters because it's a huge time commitment. And then equipment costs in general on the fire department are huge. We're seeing huge increases in, equipment costs for their trucks and that type of thing. I think probably some of the driving force is just reductions in revenue side, and that's probably what's driving the bottom line, the net operating line. Just in terms of what they're generating from third-party fire inspections. We're seeing a bit of a fluctuation in that.
Yeah, because there was previously some expectation there'd be, I don't want to say significant, but there'd be a bit of short-term rental revenue that it seems like, and it's across a couple of different departments. It doesn't seem like a lot of that revenue kind of came about the way that had been expected.
Yeah, so we had short-term rental revenue, both in terms of fire inspections. You'll see that revenue in the fire department budget, and short-term rental licensing revenue in the clerk's department. We were a bit shy for sure of expectations in terms of. I think we thought there were more short-term rentals than there actually were. We actually have a report going to council on December 15th, kind of giving an update on that program and where we're at with it, and maybe some recommendations to how to make it more efficient going forward. There wasn't as much revenue from that program as we anticipated. But overall, I would say we feel like the program was successful in achieving what it set out to do.
You mentioned sort of a bare bones full-time. Are you looking to hire more full-time firefighters or fire personnel?
Well, I mean, that certainly would be the recommendation of our fire chief. They're having a hard time getting volunteer firefighters to respond to daytime calls. They have their own work obligations to attend to, so it's hard to get them to respond in a timely manner, especially if they're not working right in Kingsville. And the answer is that we'll probably have to introduce firefighters, more of a daytime firefighter force over the years. So it'll be part of a multi-year strategy to kind of build the staffing complement up to respond to those daytime calls.
This is sort of an interesting concept, and I'm wondering if there's been any research done, if this is sort of the norm now, if other municipalities are looking and saying, you know what, we may have to do this, this is kind of precedent setting for Kingsville.
No, my understanding is that's kind of the norm across Ontario.
Okay, interesting.
And does this budget begin to work that way, or is that something that we would start seeing in future budgets?
We aren't adding any staff in 2026. So no, we're not addressing that kind of service level issue in the fire department. It's something we're going to have to address in future budget years.
Okay. And then we talked obviously about inflation pressures, and you mentioned it on the wages side, which all public sector are facing the same concerns. Where else does that show up in the budget?
I would say everything from any of our contracts that we do with maintenance contracts, grass cutting, like auto repair, equipment repair, that kind of thing, that has a trickle down effect. And then even just based on basic supplies, most of our budget is labor and service contracts, construction contracts. Really, that makes up the vast majority of our budget.
One thing we've talked about in the past is staffing levels. How are we doing on that end? Across the board, not just obviously with fire or anything.
Well, we did, I'll give our council credit. They did give us some additional staff and resources over the past few budget cycles. And we've tried to deploy those staff in the area of greatest need. We've heard from the building community that we need more building inspectors. We've heard that from developers we need more planners, and we've have other internal issues that where we know we're maybe vulnerable to addressing a potential risk in the community that we need to hire staff to address. So we have added staff over the past few years, but like I said, this budget doesn't introduce any new staff. We had some turnover in staff during 2025, and we actually replaced those with different positions to meet other operational needs, but we didn't add any additional bodies, I would say.
Okay. I mean, going back a few years, my opinion is we were always short-staffed, and you're right, like council in recent years has sort of really worked hard to address that. Maybe an unfair question, but can you set a year as to when we'll be at sort of the right complement of staff, if you will, knowing that, the town is continuing to grow?
I mean, I don't know if I can put a number on that. I think anybody that works for any organization will always say they could use more people, right? But we don't have unlimited resources, whether you're in the public sector or private sector. And then you just as a management team got to decide what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. That's really where the decision has to be made. So we will continue to add staff in areas. I know we get a lot of concerns about, say, the state of our parks, and trying to make sure we're appropriately staffed there. Depending on, it could be a year we have a terrible winter and we don't have enough snowplow drivers, and we got to pull people from other departments and put them in trucks and try to make do with what we have. So the needs are always kind of evolving and ebbs and flowing. It kind of depends on what we want to focus on and what the other environmental factors are. But, like any business, you just got to make tough decisions, decide what you're going to focus on and what you're just going to have to let go.
Fair enough.
Another department that has some increases, and it happens to every few years, is the clerk's department. Maybe Ryan, talk about why some of those increases are in there.
Okay.
Because it's an election year, Kevin.
I know. I thought he would just know that off the top of his head.
He does, but he
needs to. It's all right. The clerks. I thought it was alphabetical until I went to look at the clerks department. I'm like, oh no, where's it? It's near the end.
Just pulling that up here. So again, this is another situation where you're seeing our. There's a lot of moving pieces in this department. The bottom line of the clerks department is that it is increasing by $113,000, and the big driver of that is a reduction in revenue, both on primarily on the short-term rental licensing. And I think that'll depend on decisions that council make regarding that program going forward. So it's kind of a revenue side of the situation that's changing. I mean, our staffing wages haven't really changed much in the clerks department. We are seeing the election costs come into play in the 2026 budget. But those election costs are mostly offset through a reserve contribution. We set money aside every year to help fund the election. So that in itself isn't having a big impact on the bottom line in 2026.
So I'm very excited to get into reserves in a second, but when we talk about things like that, so when you're trying to put a budget forward, which has, like the clerk's department, $113,000, that's not insignificant on Kingsville tax rate, because Kingsville's budget isn't as high as other municipalities. It's the other side, right? Where you say, well, that 6% is only this much of an increase. Well, it is easier to cut it down too. And so when you have a situation like, where you're evaluating, where council will evaluate, that licensing program. Another one is, I know inside the budget, there was the potential for a $300,000 grant to offset some of those OPP wage increases. So when things like that happen, how does that end up impacting the budget? Because you're still collecting that money. Like, you're still the residents are still paying according to that money not being there, right?
Right. So the OPP issue that you're referring to last year is that, the province originally came out with an announcement saying that our policing contract was going to be $3.5 million, and we prepared and tabled the budget on that basis. And about 2 days before we deliberated, the province said, well, because they've been getting a lot of pushback, well, we reconsidered, and we're going to do some recalculating of how we determine the policing contract, and it's only going to be $3 million for you in Kingsville. So we had, I think, nearly $500,000 in savings kind of overnight from the province kind of reevaluating how they work out their policing formula. Now, at the time, we took that into our budget. We reduced our tax rate increase, and everyone was happy because we ended up with a tax rate in the 3% increase last year. But that funding is whether that's one time or transitional or ongoing. It will have an impact on the eventual cost of our police force, right? So over time, we will pay more for that service. I guess in terms of from our reserve strategy is from an operating side, we try to smooth things out, right? So for the election, for example, that happens every 4 years. We try to figure out, okay, what's that election going to cost? Put away 25% a year, and therefore the tax rate is kind of smoothed out. So you don't see a big spike in the year that we do the election and then it decreases the years we don't. So that's the goal of trying to smooth things out. What we want to avoid in terms of using reserves is we don't really want to take reserves and apply it against take one-time money and apply it against an ongoing expense. That would be really kind of irresponsible, in my opinion. And I know the temptation's there. I know that I'm not oblivious to the fact that this is an election year. And I know for a fact this is happening in other communities, that they're taking one-time reserve funding and kind of offsetting it against their tax rate to keep the taxes artificially low. And, it's really kind of dishonest to the ratepayer. So, I appreciate the fact that, where council lands on this budget is to be determined, but, I appreciate the fact that, they're letting us bring forward this budget. We can bring forward an honest budget, our best recommendation in terms of what we think is kind of responsible long-term financial strategy to put us in a good long-term financial position. And, the council can do with it what they will. But we've at least been unhindered in terms of what we can bring forward. So I do appreciate that.
Before Kevin gets into the reserves, it's interesting, this chatter about the election, because I don't know if you listened to the last episode, Kevin, probably haven't had time between all your research on budget, but Dave actually asked me what I thought would happen as far as the council goes in regards to the budget. And my opinion is they would be foolish to pass a low budget because of the amount of items that need to be done. They would handcuff future councils. And to me, it would be far more progressive and look better on them if they, sort of go ahead with an ambitious budget like this one, if you will.
We'll talk about that. I don't want Ryan to have to be part of that conversation.
No, but I'm kind of just adding to what Ryan said as far as, the borrowing of reserves to give a false total. You don't want to, you're misleading the public essentially, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with the thought. I'm not sure about the eventual outcome.
On the reserves, Kevin.
I agree. Politics are what they are, and the public is relying on their council. They're relying on administration to put forward a responsible budget, and so I can't blame them for only kind of looking at the bottom line, saying, I'm happy with what I get with this. But I just want the residents to think about, what they are getting, and then I really appreciate a council that's trying to be honest and not trying to play games. Because if they did pull from reserves to cut a few percent off this tax rate, they're just setting themselves up for trouble in the future. And I don't know what each councilor's intentions are going forward, but I don't think they want to put themselves in that position either.
Well, and to that, because I was trying to calculate this, and I hope that you'll correct me if I have this wrong. On the reserves, and obviously the two big life cycle ones are roads and bridges, and there are others. There's sewers, there's fire, there's a couple others, but the biggies obviously are roads and bridges. If I did my math right, you're pulling out $700,000 more than you're putting in those two lines. Like you're actually operating this year at a life cycle deficit.
Yeah, just kind of doing a quick visual look at that. Yeah, you'd be correct.
So really, this budget does actually dig itself a bit of a hole as far as roads and bridges are concerned.
Well, I would say the goal isn't to build up reserves indefinitely, right? The goal is to smooth out the tax rate increase over time, so any given year there's going to be increases and decreases in reserves. It's not necessarily indicative of a good thing or bad thing. It's you saved up for something, you're spending the money, right? So I think it kind of comes back to what you're spending the money on. I think it's a fair point. Like, as a trend over time, if this was a continual habit of like you're taking more out of reserves than you're putting in, then yes, I would agree with you. That's definitely not a good long-term strategy. But we are increasing our life cycle reserve contribution in 2026 versus 2025.
And then another I love the reserves for people for people who aren't as geeky as the three of us. Reserves are basically a fancy word for the town savings accounts.
Correct.
Right. But I love them, and I've always loved reserves as a reporter because it really gives you a good snapshot of what the town has looked at as priorities in the past, and then what appear to be priorities in the future, right? And they break it down really nicely into little groups. So, like, if you look at the list of reserve accounts, Mettawa's Park Fundraising Committee is still there with the zero balance. There's also some COVID dollars, just like a small amount of COVID dollars is kind of hanging out, like, oh yeah, remember when that happened? Or the ELK allocations that are still in there. Like it sounds geeky, but it is kind of fun to go back and look at it. And one of them that's there that's a biggie is the property acquisition and development reserve. And I assume it's for the school property, but just to confirm, Ryan, that's where the money's going that would, if it happens, eventually go to pay for the school, right?
Or for properties.
I would say it probably started out certainly for the school properties, but I think over time, council's kind of brought in that fund to say that, whether it's the school properties or some other property, we do need to eventually acquire some property and address some of the facility issues that we have here at the town.
So that has raised from 2.39 in 2024. It had an $800,000 contribution last year, so that bumped it to 3.19, and then this year $1 million contribution to bump it to 4.19. So more or less, there's 4.2 million sitting in a bank account. Well, not a bank account, but sitting aside, kind of waiting to see what happens, right? If this gets approved.
Yeah. But like I said, this could be, all it takes is a motion of council to allocate this funding to whatever project they see fit. There's no legislated rules governing how these funds are. This council earmarked this money for specific purposes, and council can re-earmark it for whatever they would like.
And maybe that happens with what's happened with school properties. I mean, Ryan, don't comment on that, but maybe something changes there. And then one other question I did have looking at the reserves. So obviously development charges, that's one where lots of money flows in, money flows out. And that's the way it goes.
Yeah, that's interesting. That you bring that up, because I know Doug Ford's been very critical of municipalities and development charges. And I think there are some municipalities in Ontario that are sitting on giant reserves of development charges. But I can confidently say that is not us. We have spent more development charges than we've collected, and we've debt financed projects on the anticipation that, we will repay that debt through development charges going forward. So it's kind of hard because of a lot of our projects in our development charge study are, they're necessary capital improvements to enable development. So, for example, say you wanted to develop, but you don't have sewage capacity. Well, you kind of have to build the sewers first before you build the homes and collect the development charges, right? So I don't think that's necessarily a bad position to be in. I think that, my comments to the development community is that we're trying to build the infrastructure so that you can build homes or commercial developments or whatever it is that you're into, so that, we're in position to be able to enable development going forward.
Well, and that was going to be my point with the West Side Collector Road, because there's 5.1-ish million that the town's going to be responsible for, and while that will hopefully, as long as development trends continue the way that we think they will, we'll get paid for through development charges, but in the short term, that's long-term debt, right?
Correct. Yep.
I don't know if it's your department that would run the figures, but does it look like there could be any concerns carrying that with the downturn in development now? And Ryan, if that's not something that you've run stats on, that's okay. Like, to let us know.
Well, I don't think. We're seeing the recent trends on permitting activity and kind of what's coming through, particularly with the housing market. I think there's some concern in the short term. In the long term, I'm not concerned. But I think that we are in a fiscal position to meet whatever debt servicing obligations we have in the short term. So I'm not at a point yet with what we've committed to that I have a level of concern. I think that we're capable of handling the amount of debt we've taken on. But certainly it does cause me a little bit of pause for the next development charge project that we want to pursue, right? It's something that we'll have to run the numbers on carefully and make sure we don't put ourselves in a vulnerable position. So say, for example, we didn't have the development charges that we needed to service this debt, we would have to make a choice to say, okay, well, we're not going to put as much money into our roads reserve this year because we got to take that money and put it into development charges. And then that is just that much more money we have to collect from development charges in the future. So that's how we handle that situation.
Would the next one, because there's still obviously the Ruthven Sewer issue that at some point needs to be dealt with. Would that be something that would end up falling under this, like under development charges as well?
Sorry, I missed the first part of that. What would be the issue that
the Ruthven sewers, because there's going to have to be work that happens on that sewer project. Would that be something that would be development charges as well eventually?
Yeah, to the extent that we were building capacity to enable additional development, then it would be development charge funded.
So when's council deliberating?
They are deliberating next Wednesday, December 10th.
So we can probably expect passage on that day too, then, based on the past 2 years.
I don't want to get too optimistic, but based on the last couple of years, I think we've passed it in a day, maybe a day and a half.
Yeah.
I don't think that there is there's maybe a few discussions that we can have about, how aggressively do we want to try to pursue our infrastructure funding deficit? Do we want to put money into the property acquisition development fund? Like, there's really just kind of a couple conversations to have to say, how do we want to move this budget? Certainly council will put me to the test. They'll ask a lot of good questions, and they'll do their homework. They have been doing it. I know the residents have been following along on Have Your Say. At least, a good handful of residents have been following along on Have Your Say. So that's all you can kind of expect. And then, hopefully it's all passed by the end of the day on the 10th. How's
the anxiety that day?
I would say every year gets a little easier. And I think, now that we're towards the end of our term of council, I kind of anticipate on where they're going to go with certain areas. They all kind of have their own specific areas of focus. So over time, you get to know council and kind of anticipate certain things. And my job is to, provide advice to council on what I think I should do. But as administration, we're here to support the will of council at the end of the day, right? So, so hopefully we've done a good job of listening to council over the years and delivering them a budget that they're looking for, which is why hopefully you won't see a lot of fireworks or grandstanding on budget day.
Well, and I think that's an important distinction, is that every budget is council's budget. Once it's approved, it's approved by council. It is the budget of council, and it's the budget that council approves to tell administration what to go and do. And a draft budget is administration's, and an approved budget is council's, and that's an important distinction.
Yeah, and they've had this budget for 3 weeks now, and so they've or by the time the meeting comes around, they'll have had it for 3 weeks, and I'm sure they've spent a lot of time looking at it and trying to figure out, where they can save taxpayers' money. There's no question.
And I know we talked about it a little bit already, but I again do want to commend you on going in to have your say and getting into those conversations. Any topics that came up on there that I'll bring one up because it actually is one that irks me a little bit when I saw the comments. Like, Ryan did a really good job answering that one. Is the assessment values, and I won't force you to comment on it again, Ryan, but I'll say my point. I do think, to be honest, that some municipalities do fudge with their assessment values a little bit when they're reporting out the amount of money that a municipal or that a resident's going to have to pay, because it makes it a little bit easier to be able to show a dollar value. And it was actually something I got in a pretty serious argument with a couple of managers of finance in different municipalities, of days gone by. And because what I would end up doing as a reporter would be, and Steve, like we would sit there at budget deliberations together side by side and do it. We would break down the mill rate and then multiply out the mill rate so that we would get the a like value on those assessment numbers to be able to say, okay, well, here's what it actually looks like. This is what a $250,000 home here looks like. $250,000 home there looks like. $250,000 home there looks like, and so on. So you can actually then report out something that's like value. But then conversely, like value doesn't make sense because an average home in Leamington is not the same as an average home in Kingsville, is not the same as an average home in Lakeshore. So when you start talking about assessment values and trying to say, okay, what the average assessment value is when you're comparing municipalities, it almost completely gets thrown out the window. And so I thought you did a great job of explaining on Have Your Say, Ryan, that this is what the mean assessment value is when you break out waterfront communities, which 100% makes sense because that's not what an average assessment is. And then it didn't even really change that much when you added in waterfront communities. So an average assessment value was give or take 250,000. It was a little bit like 251 or whatever. And then with waterfront communities, it's $261,000 in Kingsville. And so when you're trying to figure out and do those calculations, and people are trying to break budgets down in their heads, I thought you did a great job in answering that assessment value question. And then after all of that said, none of those assessment values are real because MPAC has never gone back and done a reassessment of the majority of properties. And
right.
I'll be honest, I hope they never do because I don't want to pay more.
No, that's what, I mean, people, they look at that figurative dollar value that we use, the $250,000 home, and just, that's crazy. No home, you can't buy a home for $250,000. And I agree, you can't. But the average assessed family home in Kingsville is very close to $250,000. And that's what we're levying taxes on. So that's why we use it. I appreciate the nice compliments about that. I recognize the fact that I have access to data that the average person doesn't have. So I'm trying to be transparent and cite my sources. So when I cited that reference to what the average value of the single family home not on the water, that's a figure that MPAC, that's a category that MPAC uses. It wasn't an intentional an attempt to manipulate anybody at the time when that was presented, but I was trying to kind of cite my source, if you will. But so I've gone over the assessment role. I've sorted it. I've kind of tried to capture all residential properties. And yes, the average, if we take everything, waterfront, semi-detached, condos, everything, the average is about $260,000. The median is actually $232,000. So the median is less than the figurative $250,000 that we use to present the tax rate impact.
And I do want to give you a chance. I went through some of the comments, but there was a lot. So I didn't make it through all of them. I'm not as focused and dedicated as you are. But were there any other key themes that were kind of coming up in those comments that you want to talk about that maybe it seems like people weren't quite getting a handle on?
I think we've covered a lot of the stuff today that I think there is maybe some misconceptions on. The one thing I will say is, the people that say don't worry about the infrastructure deficit, we should just debt finance things as things come up. Everybody's at a different stage in their life. Everyone has a different time horizon of what they're looking at from their own personal financial standpoint. And I get that. Our job is to kind of look very long term and trying to position the municipality to be in a good position long term, right? So we have different time horizons. So I can appreciate why we have different priorities. The only other, I like when people start having the conversation about service levels and say, maybe we should be having a discussion about whether we should have garbage collection. We should move it to bi-weekly instead of weekly. We can save some money, but there's a consequence to that. Some people really value weekly garbage collection. Maybe we should let certain parkland just go natural and don't mow it. And, probably some people who don't live near that park would be all for that. But the people that live next to that park aren't going to want that. Maybe we should cut the arena take a month off the arena operating time for a year. I'm a hockey player. I wouldn't want that. But, there's people that don't use the arena. So everyone's got different services that they use. And it's really hard. It's for any town to scale back something they've already started, which is probably why you'll hear administration push back when council comes up with a new idea or want to start something new, because it's really hard to drop it once you start it.
Well, Ryan, I do want to commend you. We talked about it before, but I do want to say I do think going through it, and I went through it line by line. I do think it is a good budget. It's going to be I think it's a difficult number, I would think, for council to be able to run an election on, and so we'll see. But I think that you and your team and administration has done a great job.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Ryan. Good luck next week.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Talk to you later.
See you. I'm just looking at a few of the capitals because, this is where I always get excited, and I see that our listeners on Road 8 East will have their road resurfaced from North Talbot to Graham Side Road.
McCain is a big one.
Yeah, there's a few projects on McCain. I actually had this in there.
Yeah.
I moved my phone and now I can't.
I think it's McCain Road 2 to 18. Kent Road 18 is one, and I think there's another one at the north end of McCain too.
Actually, McCain resurfaced McCain Side Road from Road 6 west to Kent Road 18. And then urban roads, they're doing basically the far east corner, Kenyon Point, Rowley Park, Hickory, Bayfield, Cardinal, Aurelia, St. Luke, and Autumn.
Yeah, they actually got a provincial grant for that.
Okay.
Which I don't remember seeing announced, but they got $1 million for that.
Okay. Sidewalk replacement, Division South, east side only from Royal Canadian Legion to Park Street. So I know this year they did basically from the Legion north up to Pearl, or maybe not quite Pearl. And then also on Division North from Hillview to Palmer on the west side only. So they'll be resurfacing those sidewalks.
Yeah, no major road impacts.
No, unless the county's doing some. I know County Road 50 is a bit of a mess, but we'll see. Especially with the arterial road work that's going to be going in. I know that a lot of the heavy machinery's on site at the end of Heritage there.
Which I'll be honest, and Steve, like we've seen so many of these projects be announced and discussed. It's all still to this day shocking when you actually see equipment show up and work start actually happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like everyone says, oh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But when it actually starts happening, it's like, oh, I guess that's a real thing.
And there's a funny little bit of excitement there too, right? Like you're a kid again. So.
Yeah. It's like, oh, that'll be neat. Driving a new road.
So, I mean, we can have a quick debate if you want, as far as whether or not council will.
I think there's absolutely, like I said, I think Ryan's done a good job. I think this is a good budget. I think councilors will. I don't know if they would have a problem, but I think they'll have a problem running on this budget. They'll think it's too high.
And I would argue, and this is my opinion, but I think there are members of this council who maybe seen the errors of their ways previously in passing tight budgets, and it's caught up to them. Not them personally, but the town as a whole. And I think that they can easily make a case and say, hey, listen, this is what we need for the levels of service. This is what we need for infrastructure. If you don't want to reelect me because I'm doing the responsible thing for this community, that's your choice. But to me, to run, it's irresponsible to run on a lower tax rate when there's so much work and so much catch up still to be done.
So I ran one additional number that I didn't tell Ryan because I had a feeling this conversation might come up. So
with you and I?
Yeah. So the one I ran was a target Kingsville budget of where I think council is going to set a target.
Okay.
I think they're thinking the magic number is about $100 a year increase on taxes instead of the 143, which would put them at a 4.7% budget instead of a 6.7% budget. And that's about 520,000 cut.
Which is significant. And I'm sure there are areas. I mean, maybe it's the property. Yeah, exactly. To me, that right? If I'm running, which I'm not, or if you're running, which you're not, that would make sense to us. And I understand that. And that's, but to me, I understand fiscal responsibility, but I also understand levels of service and infrastructure. And, the last thing you want is your road crumbling or the water main down the street impacting your water pressure for 2 days. And to me, if as someone who's running for council, who's maybe been there previously, you have to be able to say, listen, I understand that it's a tough pill to swallow, but this is why. And you can easily defend it. You can bring out the budget and say, hey, listen, I know you don't like the numbers, but if we don't do this now, these are the risks going forward. Or if we don't do this now, halfway through my term, I'm doing it at 8% because I didn't do it at 6.7 now.
Yeah.
So,
but it's also an election year. And it'd be easy to cut this one and bump up the next one, right?
Yeah, but that's a significant bump. But you and I could do a whole episode debating this.
We'll see.
So we'll do a couple of quick fancy lights things before we wrap up, I guess. Obviously, the Kingsville Express train is running weekendly. Is that a word?
No.
Okay. Well,
weekends. It's running on the weekend.
Yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I believe. Pause and Clause was just recent, and they had open mic. But
can I tell you? I was once a pet Santa.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Amongst your many jobs.
Yeah. No, this was a radio station gig. They the PetSmart on Walker Road had bought a ad campaign. And so part of the ad campaign was that a radio station personality had to come out and be Pet Santa. And so I drew the short straw and had to go be Pet Santa on a Saturday morning. And I get there and they have a Santa costume for me. And so go put Santa costume on, and I'm there for 2 hours having my picture taken with dogs, cats, rats, snakes, like you name it. I held it and pretended to be Santa to this.
Good for you.
And every single person that came was very upset because normally Steve Bell from AM800 did it, and I wasn't Steve Bell, and they're really mad that Steve wasn't there.
You're not Beller.
Yeah, you're not Steve Bell. Why are you here? He's always the one that did it. Like, I don't know. Talk to PetSmart.
Yeah,
They're the one that gave us money.
Last thing, Fantasy Lights Market is this weekend, December 6th, December 7th, 2 to 8 on the 6th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on the 7th, Lakeside Park Pavilion. Wrap her up, Kev.
Get your hot chocolate.
Kevin, before you wrap up, check your phone. I sent you a post from Facebook about the county council.
On it. Attachment unavailable, Gary.
Oh, no. Okay.
Oh, wait. Nope. Still unavailable. I'm clicking now.
Did they pass it? Oh, wow.
They passed it already?
I'm not surprised.
Oh, here we go. Kim DeYoung.
Our esteemed deputy mayor.
All right. So I'm going to read from Gary's phone that he just handed me a post from Kim DeYoung on Facebook. So she says, County Council finished the 2026 budget today with a 2.25% increase. Some brief highlights: $438,000 increase for community services. That includes various homelessness programs, including the Homeless Hub and overnight program in Leamington. 9 homes that provide rest and retirement services. 12 affordable housing units for youth. A feasibility study for the Sunpowder Homes needs and renos. It's an old building and needs a lot of work. 12 new staff for EMS, which is big. 2 new ambulances as well. Tech upgrades and $1 million in reserves to go towards a new EMS spoke hub station. I would assume that would be like how they do standbys, probably like a standby station to be able to, I think.
Rather than just directing an ambulance to park at Union just in case.
Actually, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Money towards the intersection at Heritage and Main. There you go.
There we go. Arterial.
I don't know if that's money towards, so that's not necessarily the actual work this year.
No, but it is the intersection of 2 county roads, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, does it become County Road 20 just past Heritage? Or is it a little bit further out? I'm trying to remember
it's a
where it stops.
little bit for, I think it's at the creek.
Okay.
Yeah, by the old Leisure Lake. But I got a big one.
Yeah, I was going to say the last one's interesting.
Yeah, new stoplight at the intersection of 20 and the Arner.
Yeah.
That's a biggie.
It is, and probably has been warranted for a long time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I do frequently go through that intersection. I don't remember having to wait there for a long time, and sightlines are decent.
Yeah, but I think there's been enough tragedy over the years, and the volumes are obviously only increasing, that it's probably a good safe step.
Yeah, those are biggies. So if they're doing that intersection, that'll mean some traffic impact.
There we go.
Yeah, I
knew we'd find one somewhere.
Is that technically? I guess half of that project's in the town of Kingsville.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
All right, this has been fun.
Yeah. Oh, I got one.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm trying to go home, Kevin.
No, we're at what, like a minute 10-ish.
Yes, because you're
now,
10
or an hour 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I started late.
Okay.
I do have a new segment segment idea, and I'm going to introduce it because I don't have to run it by Dave because he's not here.
Would you introduce it if he was?
I probably.
Okay.
But it's Old Man Yells at Cloud Corner. Old Man Yells at Cloud Corner. We had to get one voice out there. And it's the buses. So this week on Tuesday,
like the school buses.
School buses. Yeah, school buses. The school buses do not operate if there's the least bit of fog. If there's fog around, those buses are off the roads.
Okay. Keep going.
Okay. So, sure. I mean, safety, right? Safety. On Tuesday this week, the roads were ice covered. The plows were just getting out to put salt out, and the buses are out. And it's not a snow day. I do not understand how a bus is more safe when there's ice on the roads than it is when it's foggy.
Okay. Well, I mean, the fog issue I know has come up because you can walk out your door in Kingsville and watch your dog run away for 2 days. But in Tecumseh or Lakeshore, it's literal pea soup. Well, not literal pea soup, but
Yeah, not literally.
No,
No.
that was terrible, Steve. Oh, God. Smack me for that one. But it is. It's thick, and this is why some people will wonder, well, why are the buses running? But I a couple of times this year, I've got on Highway 3 when it's clear, and as soon as I get just past Bell River Road, it is thick, and you cannot see 2 car lengths in front of you.
Then it sounds a lot like a great reason to look at canceling specific routes instead of every bus across the county.
But I think logistically that is a nightmare, because it's one central hub, if you will, that directs busing. Like Bus Kids is in charge of the buses for the county.
Because they decided to make it that way.
Sure.
And they could decide to have a different protocol.
They could, but then what's it going to cost? And anyway, but that's how it is right now. I do see your point on Tuesday. The roads were a little slick in spots, but by the same token, just go a little slower.
Hey, I agree. But I'm just saying that it's significantly less safe when it's icy than it is when it's foggy. But we have more fog days than we have snow days.
Fair enough. I'll give all.
So I'm going to walk outside and start screaming at a cloud.
There you go.
That's it for this week.
Cool.
I think Dave will be back. I have no idea.
Dave has to be back.
Yeah, he'll be back.
We can't do this to two of us. It'll get ugly.
This is awful. It was great, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Are we back here again before Christmas? No.
Well,
Gary's
talk to
shrugging his
Dave.
shoulders. We'll see what happens.
We might be back. If we're not, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, and
Happy New Year.
If
Happy
we are,
holidays.
Yeah, if we are back, then just forget we said it.
Yeah, cut it, Gary.
Yeah, retroactive. That's it for this week on that Kingsville podcast. Bye.